for millions of Americans living on fixed incomes, those receiving Social Security retirement, SSDI, SSI, survivors, spousal benefits, VA, and RRB. Two major proposals continue to dominate conversations in households, online forums, and even in congressional chambers: a $200 per month raise in Social Security benefits and a potential $1,400 fourth stimulus check. These two topics have become central to the lives of those who are financially vulnerable, especially in times of high inflation and rising living costs. Today, we are diving into all the key details surrounding these two initiatives: who they would help, how they could be implemented, and whether or not it's even possible that both could become reality at the same time. First, let's begin by acknowledging a truth that many in Washington are now beginning to recognize: low-income and fixed-income Americans are hurting. Every month, thousands of beneficiaries are barely getting by. Their Social Security checks often go straight to rent, medication, food, and basic utilities, with nothing left over. Many have been waiting patiently, year after year, hoping for meaningful change. Emails, comments, letters, and even in-person visits to congressional offices have echoed the same question: when are we finally going to get the help we need? And it's a fair question. These aren't luxuries being asked for, their necessities. And for many, the wait has become unbearable. Let's talk first about the $200 per month raise. This idea has been around for years and has seen support from several prominent lawmakers. It was first floated during the early days of the pandemic by Senators Chuck Schumer, Elizabeth Warren, and Ron Wyden. Their proposal was simple but powerful: give Social Security beneficiaries a $200 monthly raise to help them weather the financial storm. Unfortunately, the legislation was introduced but never passed. It gained momentum briefly and then seemed to disappear as other urgent matters took priority. But the idea never really went away. Fast forward a year or two, and Senator Bernie Sanders reintroduced the proposal in a more comprehensive format through the Social Security Expansion Act. This new version retained the same concept: a $200 per month increase, or $2,400 annually for all Social Security beneficiaries. That includes those receiving retirement, SSDI, survivors, spousal, and SSI benefits. Under this proposal, the increase wouldn't be temporary, it would be a permanent part of your monthly check. And to put it in perspective, for someone receiving $1,200 a month, a $200 raise represents more than a 16% increase. That's significant. Now, here's the thing: while $200 sounded great in 2020, inflation has changed everything. Over the past 5 years, the cost of living has risen dramatically. Groceries, rent, transportation, and healthcare costs have all surged. So, in today's economy, $200 doesn't stretch nearly as far as it once did. Many are now saying that the raise should actually be more: $300, $350, even $400 a month, to truly address the financial needs of low-income seniors and people with disabilities. But even a $200 increase would offer meaningful relief. It would provide a bit more breathing room, a bit more dignity, a bit more stability. The Social Security Expansion Act, led by Bernie Sanders and backed by several progressive lawmakers, is sitting on the table. It hasn't yet passed, but momentum may be building. One key development that happened in 2025 is that Bernie Sanders was appointed to the Senate Finance Committee. This is a very influential position. The Finance Committee has oversight over Social Security, Medicare, and tax policy. If any legislation is going to move forward to expand Social Security or raise benefits, it must pass through this committee. Having Bernie Sanders, a vocal advocate for seniors and people with disabilities, on the committee means the $200 raise might finally gain traction. Let's talk about that now. The idea of a fourth stimulus check, this time for $1,400, has been gaining renewed attention, particularly as economic uncertainty continues to rattle Americans. While the first 3 rounds of stimulus checks helped millions during the pandemic, the economic recovery has been uneven. Inflation has outpaced wage growth, rent prices have surged, and many people are still struggling to pay for basic essentials. For seniors and others on fixed incomes, who often don't have any means to increase their earnings, the financial stress is even more acute. The proposal for a $1,400 fourth stimulus check is not tied to Social Security. It would come from the federal government's general funds, most likely through new legislation passed by Congress and signed into law by the President. Unlike the $200 raise, which is built into Social Security payments and comes from payroll taxes, stimulus checks are one-time payments. They're funded by the U.S. Treasury and distributed through a partnership between the IRS, Treasury Department, and yes, Social Security as well, in order to reach all eligible recipients efficiently. So, could both the $200 monthly raise and the $1,400 stimulus check happen at the same time? Technically, yes. They're funded in entirely different ways and serve different purposes. The monthly raise is meant to be permanent, an ongoing supplement to help cover basic living expenses. The stimulus check is a one-time economic relief measure designed to boost consumer spending and stabilize the economy during downturns. Because the funding mechanisms are separate, there's no legal or logistical reason why both couldn't happen together. In fact, something similar was proposed back in March 2020 when the $200 raise was first introduced alongside the original $1,200 stimulus checks. That sets a precedent. But of course, everything depends on Congress. We need legislative action to make these ideas a reality. And that's where things get tricky. Washington is often slow to move, especially when it comes to new spending. Some lawmakers argue that the federal deficit is already too high.